What if I told you that there is a burden that you carry every day, but that no one can see, a burden that is draining your energy, stealing your peace, and preventing you from living the life you truly deserve? You probably know exactly what I'm talking about, because you feel it firsthand every day. It's that feeling of always being there for everyone, of being the person who solves other people's problems, who offers a friendly shoulder, who never says no. But when does anyone really ask how you are? Today you will discover how to free yourself from this emotional overload that is consuming your life without you even realizing it. I will show you 10 powerful strategies that will completely transform the way you relate to yourself and others. If you don't learn these techniques, you will continue to live a life that is not yours, always putting the needs of others before your own. But if you stay with me until the end, you will discover a secret that has changed the lives of thousands of people, and that can change yours too. Get ready, because what you will learn here could be the turning point you have been waiting for. Tip 1. Recognize the signs of emotional exhaustion. The first thing you need to understand is that your body and mind have been giving you signs for a long time, but you have been completely ignoring them. Emotional exhaustion doesn't happen overnight. It sets in slowly, like a fog that engulfs everything around you until you can no longer see clearly. Let me tell you about a situation that may be very familiar to you. Imagine a person who has always been the family's problem solver. When someone needed to borrow money, she was there. When someone needed advice, she had time. When someone needed practical help, she would drop everything to help. Over time, this person began to experience constant fatigue, irritability that had never existed before, difficulty sleeping, and a feeling of emptiness that she could not explain. These are classic signs of emotional exhaustion. Your body is trying to tell you that you've long since exceeded your limits. Constant fatigue occurs because you're expending too much emotional energy, much more than you can replenish. Irritability arises because your patience is at its limit, like a rubber band stretched to its maximum. Difficulty sleeping comes from a racing mind, always worried about other people's problems, always planning how to help someone else. The first step to freeing yourself from this overload is to recognize these signs without judgment. It's not weakness, it's not lack of faith, it's not ingratitude, it's simply your emotional system asking for help. When you recognize these signs, you're taking the first step toward regaining control of your life. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly you can see where you are and where you need to go. Tip 2. Learn the difference between helping and sacrificing. There is a fine line between helping someone and sacrificing yourself for someone, and most people fail to see the difference. Helping is an act of love that strengthens both the giver and the receiver. Sacrificing yourself is an act of self-destruction that wears down the giver and can even hurt the receiver. Consider a very common situation. A person lends money to a relative who is always in financial difficulties. The first time, he helps because he genuinely wants to see the relative well. The second time, he helps because he feels obligated. The third time, he sacrifices himself, compromising his own finances, his peace of mind, and even his emotional health. The relative, in turn, does not learn to solve his own problems because he always has someone else to solve them for him. True help means offering support in a way that doesn't compromise your own well-being and that encourages the other person to grow. It's like teaching someone how to fish instead of giving them a ready-made fish. When you sacrifice yourself, you're actually preventing the other person from developing their own skills to deal with life's challenges. The difference lies in motivation and results. When you help, you feel good afterwards, with renewed energy and genuine satisfaction. When you sacrifice, you feel exhausted, resentful, and with the feeling that it is never enough. Furthermore, genuinely helping creates independence in the other person, while sacrifice creates dependence. To apply this difference in practice, start asking yourself before each situation, will this help make this person stronger or weaker? And how will I feel after doing this? If the answer indicates that it will create dependency or that you will feel drained, it is time to rethink your approach. Remember, you can love someone deeply without destroying yourself for that person. Tip 3. Set healthy boundaries. without guilt. The word no can be the hardest to say when you've spent your whole life being the person who always says yes. But setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's a basic necessity for a balanced life. It's like putting a fence around your house, not to keep people out, but to clearly define what your space is. Let's imagine a practical situation. Let's say you have a routine of resting on Sundays, a sacred time to recharge your batteries after a week of work. Then a family member asks you to babysit, a friend wants you to help move, or a neighbor needs a ride to the hospital. Your first reaction is to say yes, even though you know you'll be exhausted on Monday. Setting healthy boundaries means learning to say, I understand that you need help and I care about you, but Sunday is my day off and I need to keep it that way so I can better help you during the week. It may feel awkward at first, but you're actually being more honest and more helpful in the long run. Guilt will set in, and that's normal. You've been conditioned to believe that your happiness depends on the approval of others. But the truth is that when you set healthy boundaries, people end up respecting you more. They stop seeing you as an extension of themselves and start seeing you as an independent person with their own needs. The key is to be firm but kind. You don't need to make elaborate excuses or justify your choices. A simple, I can't do it this time is enough. Remember that every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to something that really matters to you. Before I continue, I have a special request for you. If this content is making sense in your life, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know where the people who are also seeking a more balanced and happy life are. Tip 4. Practice self-care. As a priority, not a luxury. You've probably heard about self-care, but I bet in your mind it's still seen as something secondary, something you do when you have some spare time. I have to tell you a truth that may shock you. Self-care is not a luxury, it's basic maintenance. It's like changing the oil in your car or doing maintenance on your house. If you don't do it, everything will break down. Think about a situation you may have experienced. You spend weeks taking care of everyone, solving problems, providing emotional support, and meeting the needs of others. Then suddenly, you become ill or have an emotional breakdown. At that point, you are unable to help anyone. Ironically, by neglecting your own care, you have ended up hurting the very people you wanted to protect. Self-care doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. It can be as simple as taking a long shower and paying attention to your feelings, taking a walk alone and paying attention to the nature around you, or simply sitting in silence for 10 minutes doing absolutely nothing. The important thing is that it's something that recharges your energy, not drains it further. Many people confuse self-care with activities that seem relaxing but are actually escapism. Spending hours browsing social media is not self-care, it's an escape. Watching television for hours is not rest, it's anesthesia. True self-care is something that makes you more connected to yourself, more present, more energized. To put this into practice, choose a simple activity that you can do every day for at least 15 minutes. This could be reading a few pages of a book, writing your thoughts in a journal, doing gentle stretches, or even cooking a special meal just for yourself. The key is to make it a non-negotiable priority, like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. When you take good care of yourself, you have much more energy and patience to take care of others in a healthy way. Tip 5. Identify and walk away from toxic relationships. One of the hardest things to accept is that some people in your life may be constantly draining your energy, and often these people are the very people you love the most. Toxic relationships aren't just the ones with constant fighting and arguments. Sometimes they're relationships where you're always giving and never receiving, where your feelings are minimized, where you feel drained every time you interact with that person. Imagine a friendship where you're always the one calling, always the one offering support, always the one caring. When you need help, they're busy. When you want to share an accomplishment, they change the subject. When you're struggling, they minimize your problems or compare them to theirs. Even if there's no malice involved, this relationship is draining you of energy that you could be using to grow and be happy. Identifying toxic relationships can be painful because they often involve people you genuinely love. But true love shouldn't leave you feeling constantly exhausted or insecure. A healthy relationship is like a dance where both partners move in harmony, each contributing and receiving in the right measure. The first step is to notice how you feel after interacting with each person in your life. Do you feel energized and inspired, or do you feel drained and confused? Can you be completely yourself, or do you have to wear a mask to be accepted? Are your opinions and feelings respected, or are they constantly questioned or invalidated? Stepping away doesn't necessarily mean cutting off contact completely. Sometimes it means setting stricter boundaries, cutting back on the frequency of contact, or simply stopping being the one to initiate contact all the time. It's painful at first, but it's an investment in your mental and emotional health. Remember, you don't have to stay in relationships that are hurting you just because they're old or because the person doesn't mean anything. Tip 6. Develop your emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions, as well as recognize and respond appropriately to the emotions of others. For someone who has always taken care of everyone else, developing this skill is essential to stop getting lost in the midst of other people's needs. Many people who are emotionally overwhelmed actually have trouble distinguishing between their own emotions and the emotions of those around them. It's like they're an emotional sponge, absorbing everything in their environment. When a family member is sad, you feel sad. When a friend is anxious, you feel anxious. When someone is angry, you feel like it's your fault. Developing emotional intelligence starts with learning to pause between feeling an emotion and reacting to it. When you find yourself being overcome by a strong emotion, stop for a moment and ask yourself, is this emotion really mine, or am I absorbing what someone else is feeling? You'll often find that you're carrying emotions that aren't even yours. The next step is to learn to label your emotions accurately. Instead of saying, I feel bad, be more specific. I feel frustrated because I feel like my needs aren't being met, or I feel sad because I feel lonely even when I'm surrounded by people. When you name an emotion, it loses some of its power over you. Also, practice the art of responding instead of reacting. Reacting is automatic and impulsive. Responding is conscious and chosen. When someone comes to you with a problem that you would normally jump to immediately solve, take a deep breath and ask, what does this person really need from me right now? Sometimes they just need to be heard, not saved. This little pause can completely transform your interactions and help you keep your emotional energy intact. Tip 7. Rediscover who you are. Beyond the caregiver role, after years of being the one who solves problems, who supports them, who cares for them, you may have completely lost track of who you are when no one else needs you. It's as if your entire identity is built around the needs of others, and when those needs aren't met, you feel empty and purposeless. This is one of the scariest parts of letting go of emotional overload. You may ask yourself, if I'm not the person who always helps, then who am I? This question can be deeply anxiety-inducing because it touches on your most basic identity. But it's actually a liberating question that will reconnect you with parts of yourself that have been forgotten for a long time. Think about who you were before you took on the role of everyone's caregiver. What were your dreams, your hobbies, your passions? What made you genuinely smile? What activities gave you energy instead of draining you? These parts of you haven't disappeared. They've just been lying dormant, waiting for you to have the time and energy to rediscover them. Start small. Set aside a few moments each week to do something that is purely yours, something that you enjoy regardless of whether or not it benefits others. It could be listening to a type of music that moves you, trying a new recipe, drawing a picture, writing about your thoughts, or simply sitting in a beautiful place and watching the world go by. The goal is not to become selfish, but to become a whole person with an identity of their own. When you know who you are beyond your role as a caregiver, your relationships become healthier because you no longer need the approval of others to feel valuable. You offer help because you choose to, not because you need to prove your worth. This shift in motivation completely transforms the quality of your relationships. Tip 8. Learn to receive help and support. One of the most painful ironies of being a caregiver is how difficult it is to receive care. You may be an expert at recognizing when someone needs help, at offering exactly the kind of support they need, at being there for them when times are tough. But when you need it, something inside you shuts down completely and insists that you have to handle it all yourself. This difficulty in receiving often stems from some deep-seated belief that you don't even realize you have. Beliefs like, asking for help is a sign of weakness, people have enough problems, I don't want to be a burden, or no one can do things right. Behind these beliefs is often a deep-seated fear of being rejected or judged if people see your vulnerabilities. But think about this. When someone asks for your help, do you feel uncomfortable or do you feel useful and valued? You probably feel good about being able to contribute, about being important in someone's life. The people who love you feel exactly the same way when they can help you. When you don't allow them to help you, you are actually depriving them of the opportunity to reciprocate the affection you have always shown them. Start small. The next time someone offers to help you with something simple, accept it. If someone offers to wash the dishes while you rest, let them. If someone wants to listen to you talk about your problems, let them. If someone offers to give you a ride, accept it, even if you can get there on your own. These small gestures will help you relearn that receiving care doesn't make you less capable or less valuable. Remember that healthy relationships are based on reciprocity. When you only give and never receive, you create an imbalance that can even make people feel uncomfortable. Allowing others to take care of you is a way to honor and strengthen your most important relationships. Tip 9. Cultivate a genuine support network. Having a support network doesn't mean having a lot of people around you. It means having a few people who really know you, who care about your well-being, and who are willing to be there for you in both good and bad times. For someone who has always been everyone's support system, building this network can be challenging because you're not used to seeking genuine support. The difference between acquaintances and a true support network lies in the quality of the connection. Acquaintances are people with whom you interact socially, talk about superficial topics, and share pleasant moments. A support network is made up of people who truly know you, who know your struggles and vulnerabilities, and who choose to be by your side even though they know your imperfections. To identify who is truly part of your support network, take note of the people who genuinely ask how you are, not just out of politeness. Who are the people who notice when something isn't right, even when you're trying to hide it? Who are the people who offer you practical help without you having to ask? These are the people who deserve your emotional investment. Cultivating this network means being vulnerable with these people. It means sharing your struggles, your fears, your insecurities. It means asking for advice and accepting feedback, even when it's not exactly what you want to hear. It means being there for them in the same way they are there for you, creating a genuine and balanced exchange. If you realize that your support network is too small or non-existent, don't despair. Quality is much more important than quantity. Sometimes, just one person who truly understands you is worth more than dozens of superficial relationships. Start by investing in the relationships that already exist, being more open and honest. Over time, you will attract people who value this type of deep and authentic connection. Tip 10. Transform your mindset from scarcity to abundance. The final, and perhaps most powerful, transformation is to completely change your mindset about giving and receiving. People who overextend themselves emotionally often operate from a scarcity mindset, subconsciously believing that if they don't give their all, they won't be loved or valued. It's as if love is a limited resource that must be earned through constant sacrifice. This mindset makes you believe that you need to earn people's love by being indispensable to them. You become too useful to be abandoned, but in the process, you also become too drained to be genuinely happy. It's an emotional survival strategy that may have worked at one point in your life, but is now holding you back. The abundance mindset, on the other hand, recognizes that true love doesn't have to be earned through sacrifice. People who truly care about you will love you for who you are, not just for what you do for them. This shift in perspective is revolutionary because it frees you from the need to constantly prove your worth. When you operate from an abundance perspective, you understand that taking good care of yourself doesn't diminish your ability to love others. It actually increases it. It's like the safety instructions on airplanes. Put on your own oxygen mask first, then help others. You can't give what you don't have, and you can't truly care for someone if you're emotionally drained. To cultivate this mindset, start by observing examples of people who are able to maintain healthy relationships without sacrificing themselves. Notice how they set boundaries with love, how they take care of themselves without guilt, how they offer help in a balanced way. These people are not selfish. They have understood that their well-being is the foundation from which they can truly contribute to the world around them. We've reached the end of this journey of discovery, and I hope you've realized that freeing yourself from emotional overload is not an act of selfishness, but rather an act of self-love that benefits both you and all the people who truly care about you. The 10 strategies I've shared here are not just theoretical concepts. They are practical tools that can completely transform your life if you have the courage to apply them. Remember that this transformation doesn't happen overnight. You've spent years, perhaps decades, building patterns of behavior that prioritize the needs of others over your own. Be patient with yourself as you go through this process of change. There will be times when you feel guilty about setting boundaries, and times when you want to revert to old patterns because they feel more familiar. But I want you to know that every little step in that direction is a victory. Every time you say no to something that doesn't serve you, every time you take time to take care of yourself, every time you allow someone to help you, you are building a life that is more balanced and authentically yours. Now I have a question for you, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments. Which of these 10 strategies touched your heart the most? Which one did you identify with the most? And most importantly, which one are you willing to start applying in your life today? Your answer may inspire other people who are going through the same situation as you.